Y'all know the difference between racial discrimination and systemic racism, right? Like you can see the nuance and the difference there. Racial discrimination in a vacuum means you just do not like a group of people because of their race. That's what I think you guys are all talking about, being racially discriminative. But systemic racism and racism is a whole different like ball of wax. Like that means that there's a power structure in an economy in a country that's basically racially discriminative towards a group, you know? So it has it's to do about the power structures of the country. So what is racism here isn't the exact same flavor of racism in India or South Africa. You see, do you kind of see the difference there? And, you know, I feel bad sometimes talking trash about everybody's relatives who are MAGA Republicans who don't understand nuance, but this is what I'm talking about. You know, you can't call black people in the United States racist. You can call them racially discriminative, but you can't say that they're racist because they haven't and they do not hold power. So being racist towards somebody in America, like when like Trump says they're racist towards white people or something, that tells me that Trump is uneducated and he doesn't understand nuance. He doesn't understand what we're talking about. And how can we all move on and agree if we can't even understand the basic definitions of the words that we're using in our, you know, initial arguments? Racial discrimination is different than racism. They raised me in Colorado to be racist as well, but it was more subverted. Like, you know, they dressed me up as Robert E. Lee, like it was, I don't know, Halloween, when it wasn't. And I realized how naive I was after getting to Texas, going to a TCU basketball game, sitting in kind of like the nice seats. I basically heard like a old man with money surrounded by people. Obviously he was the guy there with the tickets, and he was the, you know, big man on campus with that little group, and big red nose, old as shit. And he would drop the N-bombs through the game. And I eventually said something, and it was just me against this large group of old patrons. And the guy looked at me like I was an alien. And his wife looked at me like with that like boys will be boys look. And they were just so accepting of it. And it was so much seething hatred. I was not accustomed to the overt racism that I find here in Texas now, and 20 years ago, you know, when I moved here for college. So the racism still exists in Colorado. It's just more subverted. And I think it's national, but people here try to tell me that racism, you know, doesn't exist. And, you know, I've studied the Civil War. You know, I've seen the Daughters of the Confederacy, you know, propaganda. I know the myth that they've tried to kind of fabricate as far as, you know, the narrative they've created where slavery wasn't the root cause of the Civil War and it was about states' rights. You know, like they tried to push that all on me too. And I had to study the fuck out of the Civil War and move to Texas and kind of be submerged in the South to really get an understanding of it over the course of my life. And it's taken a long time. You know, I noticed it, but I've been mature enough in recent years with the right definitions of certain words to be able to understand the gravity of how much racism still exists today. And it's morphed into classism more so it's harder to tell, and people will say that it doesn't exist. And I tell folks down here, you know, how prevalent racism is, and they get upset at me, like they want to fight me. So seeing the contrast from Colorado to Texas, over the course of my life, I can tell you with 100% certainty that racism is alive and well here in Texas, and in Colorado. Like, it's just subverted classism in Colorado. It's overt, bigoted, straight up racial discrimination, racism here, and it's classism. But yeah, I think they're a little bit more okay with the overt racism here in the South, just because it's been accustomed and accepted for longer. So happy Black History Month. And Slava Ukraine, I had to do a bunch of research on the conflicts in Ukraine and Russia over the past thousands of years before I could make a determination on Ukraine. Similarly, I had to be submerged in Texas to make a decision on racism. I think the more you get to know, the more you dig in, the more you'll realize it. So if you find yourself disagreeing with me or getting upset with what I'm saying, it's sensitive stuff. It'll strike a chord. Don't take it personally. We were all raised like this. Like, try to separate yourself from that, deconstruct it, and move on. I wouldn't take it personally that your family and loved ones and your ancestors were all racist. That's a tough pill to swallow. I'm in therapy over it. Just do your best, for the Call of Duty community. Just, stop saying the N-word, just to get a rise out of people. I think if you knew how much pain and damage has been caused in history on this subject, you wouldn't joke like that online.